My dearest viewers, what a past few days it has been. Days that make one realize the things and those most important in our lives are very much finite, that as strong as we think we are in spirit, sometimes our body isn't up to par, I guess you could say. My mother was admitted to the hospital yesterday, February 19th. And that day, Monday, it started off almost like any other. I woke up earlier than her. I think I woke up around 11 and she got up around 12. Now, this was a little odd, but sometimes she sleeps in. Some mornings she needs her beauty sleep. And I didn't think much of it. I got my medicine all out, got it all sorted out, and when she eventually got up and it came time to take that medication for the morning, I showed it to her and she seemed fine. She seemed good at the time. But as the day progressed, as the morning soon became the afternoon, and I say soon, but you never really think about it. You're lost in your own world, never fully aware of what's going on in the very next room. She fell asleep several times, and she was just tired. She was just so tired. And it was a different type of tired. Um, it was, she was, it was like she wasn't there. My mother is someone of habit, if you know her as well as I do, you know her routines or what she expects of me. Like always take a shower before I go to work, always have something ready for lunch, that sort of stuff. But yesterday, it was different. She was just so tired. I got it all mostly set up, but she just sat in the chair in the den when I left, and I was just making sure she was all right. And she was just tired. She was just so tired. She wasn't answering her phone all day for anybody, whether it be text messages or phone calls, and she, I guess that continued. So my aunt and a very close family friend of ours, they decided to stop by. My aunt Marg, she called me around the time I was leaving the house and asked if everything was okay, if my mother was all right. In case you didn't know, I still live at home. Um, and I didn't know what to tell her. I told her that my mom was just tired. She hadn't answered any of her phone calls, anyone's phone calls, any text messages. So my aunt wanted to come by and make sure she was okay. By the time I got to work, it was roughly around 4 o'clock, and around 4:30ish, I got a call from my aunt, and they took she and my mom's friend Cecile, I call her Miss, they took her to the hospital. They took her to Baptist Hospital here in Jacksonville, Florida. Um, they were, my aunt Marg was about to call an ambulance, they, but then Miss told her, don't do that because they'll send her to St. Vincent's, which is, the quality of that place has gone really downhill. So they were fortunate enough to get her to Baptist. They had to basically convince her to get in the car. If you know the Fitches, my family, we're kind of hard headed like that, but it was, from my understanding, it took a great deal of convincing to get my mother in the car, and they had to work together to get her into the car. Now, my mom isn't a big person. She's my mom. I'm not going to say anything other than that, but she's my best friend. And Marg called me and told me that they were going to take her to the hospital. And or she called me to tell her that she was on her way. And when I was leaving work later that evening, and this had been on my mind the whole, off and on throughout the evening, I didn't really think much of it. But, I mean, it's my mother, but when I called around 9:12 last night, I called my mom's cell number and she didn't answer. It was Marg, and they were at Baptist Hospital. They had taken my mother to the emergency room, and for the first time since 2016, since the death of Laura Early, had I ever been so scared. I rushed from my job at UPS um, all the way down the highway. If I went any faster, I'd be breaking a few speed limits and getting the police on my tail, but I didn't fucking care. You just try and stop me from getting to my mother. Because my mother is the most important person in my life. And as I called Marg to let her know that I was almost there, she waited for me out in front of the emergency entrance, and they took us back to see my mother. And I think it was right then that it hit me just how scared I was. She had there had been bleeding inside her head, inside her brain. It was something like a vasculitis or something like that, but in the brain or something. I just started writing stuff down as I heard it. Um, and the doctors, they couldn't figure out where this came from. They didn't know if she had hit her head or what have you. Um, but, and that could have been and vasculitis is a swelling, um, usually in the vascular system, but that's what they said. Um, Maybe I miswrote it, but it was in the brain, and there was bleeding in my mother's brain. I mean, it wasn't a lot, but it was there. when I saw her, there was something off. There was, you know how it's, she was there, but not there at the same time. She could respond sometimes, but not all the time. But I just sat, I just was right there, started holding her, started holding her hand, making sure that she knew I was right there. And we waited in uh, that room for an hour or so, and before uh, maybe an hour or two before we were escorted uh, to a into a different room, a room like where she could like you know a hospital room. They had done all sorts of medical tests. They had scanned her brain, done X-rays, all these. The people at Baptist, they were doing a damn fine job. Probably because if they screwed up even one bit, I would hunt them down. But um, we got to this room, and by this time, Cecile, Miss, uh, she left, and she was going to stop by the house, um, and going to check on Teddy B here. Um, that's right, Miss came and checked on you, but we spent the next few hours, my mom and myself, just in that room, just trying to do whatever we could to make sure we were caught up to speed. We knew everything we could know about this procedure, about what was going on with my mother. Um, and it's amazing how panic, how fear, the anxiety of not knowing, the fear of the worst can make time go by so quickly. Because I don't even remember it being that long. I don't remember the time flying by. I don't remember anything really aside from being there with her, with them, but being there for my mother. She had thrown up a few times. Her blouse, her clothes that she wore there had gotten some stuff on it. So thank you, Marg, for taking those clothes home and to your house and cleaning them and getting them rinsed and cleaned and all that stuff. That was, but I remember when we got to the waiting that the hospital room. Um, it was on the 10th floor, room 1019 of the waiver um, section of the Baptist Hospital, um, that we started learning and hearing more about what could be going on. Um, we, I heard things being bounced around like, did she hit her head? Did they like My mom's a defiant person. She is hard-headed. Um, when they tried to do a CAT scan of her, they gave her, the sedative, but they gave her an extra dose because she was just that stubborn, I guess. Uh, she couldn't stop moving. So they had to double dose it, I guess. And all day, or ever since then, she had just been she had just been out of it. Um, I would say I left. I finally left there around 1, maybe 2 in the morning, and I came back home to check on Teddy B. I didn't eat anything. I just had a shower. Didn't sleep because none of that mattered. I knew if I didn't find something to take my mind off of what was going on, that the weight of what happened within those past few hours would just destroy me. I watched a little bit of Netflix, but around about 5 o'clock, maybe, I called Marg and told her that I was going to be headed back to Baptist Hospital. Now, one thing you need to know about Baptist Hospital, it is a big place. It is a big hospital, and trying to get out of there the first time, I got lost for like 20 minutes. So it was at least 20 minutes trying to find, maybe 15 minutes this time trying to get back to where I needed to go. But it was a lot easier this go around. But when I got back into that room, my mom was out of it. She was just out cold, snoring like an Albanian field winch. Uh, and the doctors tried everything. Like, at some point, they tried everything they could to wake her up because they need to do stuff like check her eyes or whatever. And her head, she just kept like, she just, even in her sleep, she was not cooperating. And that is my mom for you. That is my mom to a T. Um, er, People who know her say she's the nicest person, and she is. She's my best friend. But there's still that, like, defiance in her, and uh, you couldn't take that out of her. Not even asleep or all sedated and whatnot. You just could not take that out of her. But I took over for Marg for the next few hours, and this time I brought my laptop, and we it was just the two of us for the longest time. Marg finally got to go home and have a good night's rest, and the next day, early in the morning, they all these doctors started coming in, checking in on her, and trying to ask her questions, and she was still out of it. When I'm trying to remember, I wrote down some notes from that just so I could give you, dear viewers, anybody listening, an account of what's been going on. she was out of it till she did not really fully regain consciousness or some form of it until I want to say 2, maybe 1:30, 2 o'clock, um, in the that afternoon. So February 20th to 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that she kind of started getting some bearings, I guess you could say, but it wasn't. She wasn't fully at the wheel, I guess you could say. Um, she hadn't eaten anything. She hadn't drinking anything since she got there. But this wonderful doctor, she came in. She was a uh, physicist or neuro doctor or whatever, or neurologist, I guess. Her name's Brittany, and she was able to give my mother some ice chips, and my mom was able to drink some water, and she even had three teeny tiny little things of spoons of applesauce. So she was able to eat something and get something in her stomach, but it just wasn't a lot. But happier. I was happier that she got some fluids in her, if only a little bit. Um, but there really wasn't much progress. So this Dr. Brittany, said that she would come back tomorrow morning and check on her. During this time, my uncle and his wife, Tim and Pam, they came to check on my mother, and they watched out for her for. Um, they sat with me for a while. We got a little bit of a snack from the deli downstairs, but nothing really had changed. At one point, before anybody really showed up, before Marg returned, or Cecile or Tim and Pam returned or came, this one nurse came in, and she was trying to do the blood IV, um, get a blood sample from my mother, and I actually had to hold her arm because she just wouldn't stop fidgeting. Her she was, and it hurts me to have held her, because my mother, she bruises really easily. Her skin is not that thick. It's just something like, and there will be a bruise. Something harder, she'll be bleeding. And it scared me, the idea that maybe I could be potentially hurting her, but I was worried for her. I needed to make sure that the doctors were being able to do what they needed to do without her getting in the way. Another act of defiance from her was when the doctors had to come in and, like, you know, uh, check your eyes or whatever. Well, my mom, they couldn't get her to open her eyes because she was really under uh, those sedatives. But the doctors eventually were able to uh, get those her eyes scanned or whatever photo, and that was able to be done. And what we later found out was several things were at play here. First of all, that there was bleeding. There was bleeding in the brain. I really don't know how the hell it happened, but it happened. The good news was it has stopped. That is the good news. Um, that there was I guess, some swelling that was going on. We just don't know what really caused it. But that um, the uh, the or the swelling affected part of her frontal lobe, which is, and particularly the communication portion of the brain. And I think maybe part of the memory. They said that she should recover, but there will be a moment like with any kind of inflammation, like bursitis or uh, which I've had from time to time, um, that it'll get worse at one point before it gets better, and that will be the case here. But also that she's going to need to go to rehab for and physical therapy for a while. I don't know when this will be a thing. I don't know when this will happen, but the most painful thing I had ever seen in my life was, it was like she was a broken record. I would say, "Hey mom," or "I love you," and she just keeps saying, "I love you. I love you." Over the phone, I we just go back and forth. "I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you." And I try and mix it up by saying, "You're my hero." I'd always say, "You're my hero. You're my mentor, my best friend." And she's my peachy pesa. That's princess in Italian. I I got it from that movie Life is Beautiful. Buongiorno peachy pesa, and it's the like an a title I gave her, the peachy pesa, and some of them she would respond or repeat back to me, and others she didn't. I walked over and when the doctor was asking my mother, "Do you know who I am?" And she said, "No." "Do you know where you are?" "What part of Jacksonville are you in?" "Avondale." San Marco. Uh, and the nurse pointed to me. "Do you know who he is?" She didn't remember me. Now, this was just part of the swelling, I assure you, but there is nothing. I can't. I know I joked about it, like, we know she doesn't mean it, but when you think about it, for a mother to forget in that moment, it never dawned on me like, Teddy, he's just trying to give me a shower. I haven't bathed since I got home. Uh, my mom didn't remember me. And it hurt me so much to leave her at that hospital. I know she was in good hands. Know the doctors are taking great care of her, but I just want I don't know what to do. My fear in life has always been Teddy, not Teddy. My fear in life has always been dying alone, just fading away, withering, forgotten. It wasn't until that drive last night that I realized losing my mother is perhaps the worst thing that I could ever imagine, because she is the reason I'm here. I will, for those of you who don't know, dear viewers, I was adopted. I was adopted from a small Russian town called Murmansk. My mother was part of a teacher exchange back in 1992, 1991, I think. And she wanted to adopt a child, a boy. She went through all the customs, she went through all the paperwork, and she gave me a chance. She gave me a chance at life. She's the best person I've known. I don't care if I'm crying. Fuck it. My entire time there, the only thing I thankfully brought my laptop because to work on videos, because the more I thought about and dwelled upon this situation, the darker and the deeper into the pits of despair I just sank. The only time in my life I felt this hopeless was when Laura Early, a very, very, very dear friend of mine, was, well, no longer with us back in 2016. I could never, for the longest time, I felt like that was it. I didn't know what to do. And I feel like I'm back there again, dear viewers, whoever's watching this. I feel like I'm back there at that point where I'm asking, what do I do? I don't want to leave her alone. Suppose she regains like awareness and she's all alone. I don't know what the future has in store. I know this is a part of a plan. I think this is something that's meant to happen. We don't necessarily have to like it, but I trust in God. I trust what his judgment is. And I know what the doctors say, that my mom is going to recover. It'll take some time, but she should pull through. But whatever happens, I have faith and what needs to be done or what God needs to happen will happen.